Good evening, everyone. It's Katie Joy from Without a Crystal Ball. I hope you're having a wonderful night. Tonight's stream is per your request, actually. I wasn't planning on even doing a stream on this topic because YouTube doesn't like these streams. Every time I have discussed this story, they automatically demonetize me. And that annoys me. So, knowing that, if you like this stream and you want to help support more content like this, feel free to use the super chat or consider becoming a Patreon so I don't have to care so much about stuff getting demonetized. Let's move on to the story. All right, today we are going to talk about a little boy in the state of Florida. His name is Noah McAdams, and he is 4 years old. His parents, Joshua McAdams and Taylor Bland-Ball, are fighting the state of Florida for custody after the state removed Noah from their custody in April following a multi-state search for Noah because he didn't show up for scheduled chemotherapy. The family defied a court order and they found him in Kentucky. They issued a missing children's bulletin, and a multi-state and the FBI worked together to locate him in Greenville, Kentucky. The family was on the way to Ohio to see a second opinion from a known doctor who is a osteopath who believes that cancer can be cured with hyperbaric oxygen, herbs, and CBD. Now, to give you a little bit of background on Noah McAdams has a very treatable form of what's called acute lymphoblastic leukemia. ALL for short is staged a few different ways, but in Noah's case, based on statements made by his parents, he has a very low risk and high probability, a low risk for death and a high risk for survival. He, in fact, with proper care and treatment, has a 96% chance of beating this cancer. Now, the cancer for little boys is the treatment for little boys is a little bit longer. It requires 3 different stages. Induction, which actually puts the child into remission, and that's usually done over about a month. And most children that have ALL will enter remission within the first month of their treatment. Then they go into the next phase, which is, I believe, intermittent or maintenance, one of the two. And this one is working to get those final cells, because this form of cancer is actually in your blood and bone marrow. And because it recycles and repopulates through the blood marrow, they have to do blood marrow, where they change out your blood marrow, transfusions, or no, not transfusions. Oh my gosh, you guys, it's been so long since I've talked about this case. I can't even remember all the details. They have to redo your blood marrow, reset it to basically 0. I have a friend that actually has a bone marrow transplant. Yes, I'm sorry. It's been a minute since I've done this story. Okay. So, they have to do a bone marrow transplant. They do radiation, chemotherapy, and then for little boys, they have to go ongoing for almost 3 years, because this form of cancer can actually hide in little boys' testicles. And so they have to do an oral chemotherapy for a couple years after they get through the second phase of chemo. Now, the family consented to the first round, not even completing the first full round of chemo, but just 2 doses of the chemo. And then when they were released from the hospital, they were scheduled to return, but they didn't. And instead of returning to the hospital, they fled the state. So when this all happened, it was a national story. You might remember it's been everywhere. It's been on Good Morning America. It's been on the Today Show. It's been on NBC Nightly News. It's been on ABC. Been on CBS. Everybody has covered this story. And the parents were found in Kentucky, brought back to Florida, and Noah was subsequently removed from their care. Now, it gets dicey here because while they're on the run, Noah has a PICC line, which is a line, let me just tell you, it's a peripheral line that goes into an artery. And it's a one that is it's like a permanent line where you can take and administer drugs and IVs, or administer drugs and like fluid for treatment. My son has had multiple PICC lines. He's had them in his neck. He's had them in his arms. Noah's was in his arms. PICC lines, because of their location and where they are on the body, are extremely prone to infections. And because of that, they are very, very, very dangerous to remove. And you have to have training, and they have to be done in a hospital, and they can get easily infected. So instead of going to the doctor, they fled with their kid who had an active PICC line in his arm, and the mother removed the PICC line without any medical training at all. That's right. They also planned to give him miracle mineral solution, hyperbaric oxygen, THC, CBD, herbs, and an alkaline diet. Absolutely none of which will do anything to prevent this child's cancer from going into remission and from survival. In fact, ALL is such an aggressive form of cancer that if you stop treatment, it can actually prevent, or it can actually cause the cancer to come back very quickly. And if you go into remission and then come out of remission, your chances of like survival go down. It's a very aggressive form of cancer, which is why they have to stay on continued chemotherapy and treatments for a really long time. There was a lot of stuff going on with this family, not even just related to Noah, but also to the relationship between mom and dad. In 2016, the father, Joshua McAdams, was actually arrested, and I'll show you a picture here just so you guys can see. Joshua McAdams was actually arrested by police in Florida after he threw a bucket at his girlfriend Taylor, and the bucket hit his son in the face, and it caused a laceration. So here they are. That is Taylor, and that is Joshua. Joshua believes he's a sovereign citizen, so he doesn't think that the rules apply to him. And Taylor is a birth keeper, like a rebel birth keeper. So she thinks that she can help women deliver babies, but she has zero training as a midwife. She's only worked as a doula. She has no medical certifications, and she tells women not to get ultrasounds, not to have any prenatal like scans, not to get tested for strep B, gestational diabetes, not to get any swabs done. She encourages women to birth without any assistance. She is insane. And she has zero training to do this. And she is part of what's called the free birth movement. And this is how I know Taylor. Because in my world on Pathios, I've covered a lot of women that believe in this radical form of birth called free birth. And Taylor is a central figure and a prominent voice in this community. She actually was instrumental in outing another free birth advocate named Emily Saldea, and actually threw out some screenshots that proved that Emily was connected to the death of an infant, and by doing so was able to get people to be less interested in Free Birth Society and then interested in the company that she offers. She's pretty sketchy. She and her friend Desiree run this company. They go to births all over the country. They have zero business giving like any sort of advice to anyone about birth. So she is ridiculous. And Joshua thinks he's a sovereign citizen. He is the type of, so he has been in domestic violence. In 2016 was arrested for throwing a bucket at Taylor and then it hitting Noah in the face, causing a laceration. He threw Taylor into a wall multiple times, which caused bruising on her face and head, according to her shoulder and head, according to her mother and her grandmother. Taylor is now, I've actually spoken to sources connected to this family. So, according to my sources, Taylor's family is actually pretty normal. In fact, her stepfather is a police officer for Hillsborough County. Imagine that. Her stepdad is a deputy. And her mother is just an average mom. They believe in vaccinations. They believe in medicine. They believe in everything. And they are not at all supportive of what they're doing with baby Noah. And Joshua's family is equally as normal. And Joshua, from what my sources tell me, has been diagnosed with some form of delusions and hallucinations. I'm not sure if it's schizophrenia or if it's some sort of psychosis or psychotic disorder, but he has had a long run with mental illness, which has led him to have a lot of paranoid beliefs about just about everything and has sent him down the spiral of believing that all medicine is evil and has toxins in it, and he is skeptical and scared of everything. And according to my sources, it all stems from his untreated mental illness, and he, as a result, has brought Taylor into this, and he's extremely, according to my sources, extremely controlling of Taylor. They are in a emotionally and physically abusive relationship, and Noah is in the middle of it. However, on Facebook, Taylor would like you to believe that everything between these two is hunky-dory, even though nobody in the family on either side supports this relationship. Are we all squared up? Do y'all understand where we're at? These people are not Scientologists. They are Christians. And they are sovereign citizens. If you're not familiar with sovereign citizens, look them up. They're wackadoodle. And Taylor is a free birth person who believes that birth is inherently safe, which it's not. There's a lot going on. They are also, according to my sources, professional grifters. And so what they do is Joshua has a history of suing people. He has done multiple lawsuits against employers for injuries, which eventually end up settling. And he recently had a dog bite that he said, according to court records, caused him extreme mental anguish and not able to work. And that was literally right before they took off for Kentucky. How do you think he looks today? Do you think he can look like he worked? Do you think a dog bite looks like he can't work? Yeah. They've also set up multiple GoFundMes. They've had tons of fundraisers, even though Noah has Medicaid, and even though everything is being paid for by the state. They have no expenses. They've had no house. In fact, only a year before, they sold off all of their possessions, and they didn't allow family members to give Noah gifts for his birthday because they decided they were going to cross country it across the United States so Taylor could deliver babies that she has no right delivering. Not a stable environment for a 3-year-old. Not a stable environment. So, thank you so much, Lucia, for your super chat. Now, these two have been all over the media, and they have also been highly sought after in the what's called medical kidnapping world, which is all a damn hoax. It's a conspiracy where parents say that the medical establishment is kidnapping children because parents are refusing to treat their children. The issue here is that in the United States, and specifically in the state of Florida, it is against the law for a parent to deny life-saving treatment to a child, regardless of what the parent's beliefs are. And the laws are in place in order to protect a child from a parent having beliefs like these guys. And what it means is that If a child is sick and at the hospital, a doctor has a right to treat the child regardless of what the parent wants. And if a parent refuses treatment, they can be held criminally responsible and charged with child neglect and abuse. Now, in this case, the parents have not been charged with any crimes. However, they're in the middle of a child custody battle with the state, and criminal charges could still follow pending the result and the order by the judge in this case. Right now, the custody battle, and this is interesting, is being handled by the Attorney General's office, which is not something that you see quite often when it comes to child custody. The Assistant Attorney General was in court this week. That's how big of a deal this case is. You don't see that very much, I'll tell you that much. So, these two have lied and said it's medical kidnapping, but what the state says is not only did the parents deny Noah timely treatment for his leukemia, but when he actually arrived at the hospital, and her grandmother testified in court this week that leading up to his illness in April, he was so sick that they refused as parents to take him to the doctor. And her grandmother had to tell her she did not care what was going on. She believed that Noah was dying, and she would pay for whatever she had if it was related to money. Her grandmother had to threaten her by threatening to say that she would call the police if she did not take her child to the hospital. Now, I spoke to people connected to the family who were at the hospital on the day of his arrival in April, and I've been told by them that it was extremely touch and go, to the point where doctors sat them down and told them that Noah might die. His hemoglobin at the time when he was admitted into the hospital was 2. He needed more than 5 blood transfusions and had to be airlifted from one hospital to another because he was so severely ill. After he rebounded and he survived, they found out that he had ALL, and the treatment started, and they told him if they didn't start this treatment, he was going to die, so they consented. But they did as little as they could, as possible, for treatment. And as soon as they were released, Taylor and Joshua refused to bring their child back to see the doctors at Johns Hopkins. This is where it all falls apart. What's interesting, though, is while they were in the hospital for his first admission, when they were treating it and he receives the diagnosis, Taylor had only good things to say on social media. In fact, she praised hospital staff. She called the hospital wonderful. She said that they were taking really good care of Noah. She was so happy that he was there and with that staff. And yet, within days of being released, she said that the hospital was dirty, the staff was mean, and everything sucked. Taylor not only has denied her son treatment for this kind of stuff, but Taylor has no problem getting treatment for things herself. In fact, when she had kidney stones, she went to the ER to get pain meds. Do we have irony here? So she is not sure. She testified in court this week, and she said that she was just really unsure about what they were putting into her son. So instead, she wanted to put in unproven things like colloidal silver, miracle mineral solution, which is bleach, hyperbaric oxygen, CBD, and THC. Oh yeah, and she was going to treat it with arsenic from apricot seeds and an alkaline diet. Now, this family has been ridiculous. Now, Joshua, for his part, has been defiant and angry and dangerous. In fact, when they issued the bulletin when they were missing, they said that he is known to be armed and dangerous and should be considered dangerous. Well, that's not surprising because he's had multiple run-ins with the laws, and sources connected to his family tell me that he is a very volatile and angry person that is known to go into rage. Sounds like a great father, right? After they removed Noah in April, he went into the custody of his grandmother, Amanda. which is Taylor's mother. Under Amanda's care, Noah is doing phenomenal. Amazing. Amanda is following all of the doctor's orders, has been taking him to all of his chemotherapy. He has continued to be in remission, and he is still in the second phase of chemo. During testimony this week, Taylor said that she now would agree to chemotherapy, but she said that she would not consent to the third part of chemo. But like I said, with this form of cancer, you need all 3 stages to remain in remission. On the stand, Joshua was defiant and argumentative with Kenneth Beck, who is the Assistant Attorney General, and he had problems answering just basic questions related to the time where he actually threw a bucket at his son's head and cut him, to actually dealing with a psychiatric hold he had to go through as a teenager when he took a toy and a bat and busted it through a window, and his parents had to send him to a psych ward to deal with his issues, which led to those diagnoses I was telling you about earlier, to which the family sources say this has been an ongoing struggle and he does not take his medication. So this is wild. Noah, for you guys that are wondering, is doing phenomenal. He is thriving. He is doing well. The treatment is working. Now, court started on Monday, and the first day of testimony was Joshua, and then a state medical expert who discussed the PICC line. And so what happened was, while they were on the run, like I told you, Taylor removed the PICC line, and the medical expert testified that she could have killed him because an infection could have started. She could have let fragments of the PICC line in his arm, which could have ultimately led to sepsis. And they had his mother, or her mother, so Amanda, maternal grandma, testified and talked about how she described the relationship between Taylor and Joshua as abusive. Grandmother, whose name is Joyce, testified as well and talked about the struggle she had around how they chose to parent, how they refused to take Noah in for his when he was near death in April, and discussed with them about how Joshua, despite the fact that he's been through anger management classes, still continues to demean and criticize and emotionally abuse Taylor. And the sources I talked to connected to Joshua's family told me nobody in Taylor's family likes him. So the next day, Taylor was on the stand. And while she was on the stand, she literally admitted to taking the PICC line out. She said that she watched videos online, and that's how she figured out how to take out the PICC line. And she said that because she works as a doula, she has experience with IVs, and so she didn't feel like it would be a problem. She knew that there was a risk of infection, but she said she was really careful. Except she was literally not in a sterile environment. But whatever, Taylor. She also testified that her husband or her boyfriend and her were just they just didn't understand, pleading ignorance, all of that good stuff. And she told the state that they were medically kidnapping her son. Way to be taken seriously. And then on the stand, a caseworker. And this is the part that actually gets me. A caseworker for this, in this case, testifies that while Noah was at a chemotherapy treatment, they were there because the parents have only been allowed supervised visitation. She said that Joshua cornered her against a wall and he screamed at her because she gave Noah green slime for getting through his treatment. And it was just like a little gift. Like sometimes they give little gifts after your kid goes through all of this stuff. Okay? Well, she says that he basically pinned her up against a wall and screamed at her. To which the defense was like, well, he was just concerned about the fragileness of his state, and he believed that there was chemicals in the green slime. They were worried about the chemicals in the green slime, but they weren't worried about giving him arsenic or miracle mineral solution, which is bleach, but they were worried about green slime. Do we see the hypocrisy here? It's kind of like thick. On Tuesday as well. His actual grandmother and aunt were supposed to testify, but I guess they weren't needed. And the case went to the judge. Now, the media, in fact, Good Morning America, was trying to pretend like this is a case about if a parent has a right to refuse treatment. Maybe, but this isn't just about whether a parent has the right to refuse treatment. This is a family that literally refused treatment, ripped a PICC line out, fled out of state while their child was near death, and then has a set of parents that are involved in an abusive relationship. So it's not really about whether a parent has a choice to refuse treatment. And it's not a debate because it's a law. A parent in the United States cannot deny treatment for life-threatening illnesses. We have laws in this country that protect children from their parents being assholes. So Noah's case will go to the judge, and the judge has until 30 days. Taylor announced on Facebook that he was planning to have a decision by the first week of September, or 3 weeks from now, I think. According to the family sources that I have spoken to, nobody wants Noah to be returned to the parents, and they are hopeful that the state will revoke their custody. At this point, the grandmother has temporary custody. Now, what's not clear is if this is actually like a termination or if the judge will just place him permanently with grandma and then allow the parents options for reunification. However, given the severity of this and the fact that the Attorney General is involved, I don't really know what to make of this, heads or tails. Either way, whether you think this is a big pharma conspiracy or not, Noah deserves parents who have his best interest in mind and who are not going to rip out a PICC line without medical experience or under a sterile environment. He deserves parents to be raised in a home, not one with fighting with a father who is unstable and violent, and he deserves to be with a parent as a mother who doesn't believe she's smarter than everyone else and knows medical training, knows how to do things that are medically trained without any medical experience. He's the sad sort of collateral damage of two people that probably just got together and should not be together. They've in fact had a very rocky relationship. My sources have told me that they have split and joined custody multiple times. So, what are your thoughts about all of this? I know there was a lot of comments when I shared the article yesterday. But I would hope that with a little bit more backstory, you understand, the case they have against this parents is far more than just about leukemia and really a story about the massive amount of neglect that this child experienced leading up to his diagnosis, his subsequent stay in the hospital in the weeks following that could have killed him. He only survived because the state intervened. Today, he's thriving. All right, you guys, I want to know what your thoughts are. If you appreciate what I do, please make sure to consider getting me a cup of coffee or buying me a donut or whatever you want to do. Send me a super chat. I know this is going to get demonetized as soon as I hit goodbye. I'll be back tomorrow with more. This is my final stream for the night. I hope you have a wonderful night, guys. Bye.